This is Algebra 2, test number 11, part 2. We're picking up with number 4, labeling this quadratic f of x equals x squared plus x plus 1. First thing you need to do is you need to find what x is. X is negative b over 2a. A, b, and c. So negative b would be negative 1 over 2 times a, 2 times 1. So negative 1 over 2 is your x value. Once you have that x value, plug it back in order to find y. Remember, f of x is y. Equals, now we have negative 1 over 2 squared plus 1 over negative 1 over 2 plus 1. So negative 1 half squared will be 1 over 4 minus 1 over 2 plus 1. So the bottom of all of them are going to be 4 if you want to have all of your denominators match. So this one will stay as 1/4. Negative 1/2 will become negative 2/4, and plus 1 will become plus 4 over 4. So keep 4 at the bottom. 1 minus 2 is negative 1. Negative 1 plus 4 is 3. So your y value is 3/4. That makes your vertex. X comma y, negative 1/2, 3/4 is your vertex. So when we graph this inequality, it's going to open up going up. So you don't have to go any lower on your y than 3/4. So negative 1/2, 3/4 is your axis, is your vertex. Negative 1/2, and then positive 3/4. So that'll be almost at 1. So your vertex is negative 1/2, 3/4. So almost at 1. That's your vertex there, and it's going to open up. So use 0 is your next x value. So when x is 0, plug it in. Y equals x's value. This is x's value. Y equals 0 squared plus 0 plus 1. So 0 plus 0 plus 1, y equals 1. So when x is 0, y is 1. So that's your second point, is y is 1. And then when x is 1, y equals 1 squared plus 1 plus 1. So 1 squared plus 1 is 1 plus 1 is 2 plus 1, y's value is 3. So when x is 1, y is 3. So x being 1, y is 1, 2, 3. This is your axis of symmetry at 1/2. And we can mimic that on the other side. So go 1/2 over to negative 1, positive 1, and to negative 2, positive 3. And we could draw our parabola looking like that. It says label the axis of symmetry and the vertex. Well, the axis of symmetry is this line here. X is negative 1/2. It's the same value we found for x originally. X is negative 1/2. And the vertex itself is, our vertex is what we found when we found our y value, negative 1/2, 3/4. Starting at number 5, we solve the equation 9x squared plus 4 equals 0. First thing you want to do is get rid of plus 4 by subtracting it. So now you have 9x squared equals negative 4. Then get rid of 9 times something by dividing by 9. Do the same here. X squared equals negative 4 over 9. Cancel out x squared by taking the square root. Take the square root of this. That'll give us x equals the square root of negative 4 over the square root of 9. When you simplify that, you get x equals I times the square root of 4, because you have to take that negative out, over. All right, picking back up with number 5. X equals I times the square root of 4 over the square root of 9 is 3. So if we have I times the square root of 4, that'll be 2 times I over 3. So your x value is 2I over 3. Number 6 says x squared plus 4x plus 4. That's a perfect trinomial there. The reason you know it's perfect trinomial is because you can take the square root of x squared and get x. and you can take the square root of 4 and get 2. This tells you to put plus in the middle of them and square both of them. So that equals 16. So get the fact that it's squared away. In order to undo squaring something, you take the square root, do the same thing here. It leaves you with x plus 2 equals the square root of 16, which we know is 4. So you have x plus 2 but not just 4, it's both positive and negative 4. So you can rewrite that to make it a little bit easier to solve this one as 4 and negative 4. And we'll just work the problem both ways. Get rid of plus 2 by subtracting it. Do it here and do it here as well. And x equals 2 or negative 6. 7 says negative 6y minus 13 equals 5 times y minus 5. 5y you have to distribute, and 5 times negative 5 is minus 25. Now you have variables on both sides. Bring your smaller variable, negative 6y, over to your larger 5y by getting rid of minus and adding 6y. Do the same to this side. 5y plus 6y is 11y minus 25 equals, there's still negative 13 on that side. Get rid of minus 25 by adding it. Do the same thing to this side. Negative 13 plus 25 is positive 12 equals 11y. Get rid of 11 times something by dividing it. Do the same here. Y equals 12 over 11. Get rid of positive 4 by subtracting it. Do the same thing here. Leaves you with 56 on the right equals 8 times n. Get rid of 8 times something by dividing by 8. Do the same thing here. N is 7. 9 says 4 times y plus 7 equals 56. 4 times y is 4y. 4 times 7 is plus 28 equals 56. Get rid of plus 28 by subtracting it. Do the same thing here. And 4y equals 28. Get rid of 4 times something by dividing by 4. Do the same thing here. Y is 7. Then you have to factor this expression. It's a binomial, so what you want to do is you want to pull out what they have in common. A 5 is a factor of both 25 and 20, so 5, and x is a factor of both of them. So 5 times 5 gives you 25, and 5x times x gives you 25x squared. 5 times 4 gives you 20, and you already have x, so this is the factored version, 5x times 5x plus 4. To factor these trinomials, you need to create 2 binomials. So in order to do that, you need to find the factors of the number 20, or 1 times 20, 2 times 10, 3 times nothing, but 4 times 5. And then you need to create 2 sets of parentheses to do that. X times x will give you x squared. Then we're working FOIL backwards. Look at the number in the middle, 12, and then look at your pairs of factors. 1 and 20 will only give you either 21 or 19. 2 and 10 will either give you 12 or 8, and 4 and 9 is either going to give you 1 or 9. So this is the pair you want to use, 2 and 10. So 2 and 10. Then look at the signs before each of your terms. So you have x and 2 and x and 10. Look at the signs in front of them. Look at the sign in front of the c value. It's plus. That tells you that they're going to be the same. If it was minus, they would have been different signs. That tells you they're going to be the same. Then look at the sign in front of the b value. It's negative. Since they're the same, that one tells you that they're both going to be negative. So x minus 2 times x minus 10. Do the same thing with the next one. Look at the term that is the c term, 30, and factor out 30. 1 times 30, 2 times 15, 3 times 10, and 5 times 6. Then put yourself 2 sets of parentheses again. X times x will give you x squared. Then you have to do FOIL backwards. You have to choose one of those pairs of factors that you can add together and get to your b value, which is not shown here, but it's 1. 1 and 30, when you add them together, is either going to give you the number 29 or it's going to give you 31. 2 and 15 is either going to give you the number 13 or 17. 3 and 10 is either going to give you 7 or 13. 5 and 6 is either going to give you 1 or 11. So we have to use 5 and 6. 5 and 6. Look to your signs. This one, now it's negative. That one tells you they're going to be different signs. Since that one says they're going to be different, look to the first sign, the one in front of the B. That one tells you since they're different, that the larger one is positive. 6 is larger, that one's positive. Since they're different, this one's negative. So x minus 5 times x plus 6. 13 is writing this in a plus bi form. You can't have the square root of negative 64, so we need to take that negative out and call it I times the square root of 64 plus 1. The square root of 64 is 8, so I times 8 plus 1. It's plus or minus the square root of 64, so when we rewrite it as a plus bi form, it's going to be 1 plus or minus 8i. Finding the missing value to complete the square. Ax squared plus bx plus c. This is how you find c. Take the b value, which is 22, divide it by 2, and then square it. 22 divided by 2 is 11, and 11 squared is 121. So your c value is 121. 15 says solve the quadratic by completing the square. That's good. Okay, this one's not a perfect square because 15, you can't take the square root of that. So what you need to do is get rid of plus 15 by subtracting it. Do the same thing to the other side. That leaves you with x squared plus 6x equals negative 15. So we want to find c. We want to find the c value. It's unknown right now. In order to find c, do just like you did on the last problem. Take b and divide it by 2 and square it. B's value is 6. Divide that by 2 and you get 3. Square that and you get the number 9. So C's value is positive 9. But if you add 9 to the left side, you have to add it to the right to where you don't imbalance the problem. Now you have a perfect trinomial. Take the square root of the first one, x squared, and you get x. Take the square root of 9 and you get 3. This tells you that there's a plus between them. So x plus 3 squared equals negative 15 plus 9 is negative 6. So now let's undo squaring something by taking the square root of it. If you take the square root of the left side, do the same thing to the right. X plus 3 equals the square root of negative 6. So x plus 3 equals I times the square root of 6 because you have to take the negative out of there. So get rid of plus 3 by subtracting it. Do the same thing to the other side. So x equals negative 3 plus or minus the square root of 6 times I, plus or minus. 16 says rewrite it in vertex form. Well, again, we don't have a perfect trinomial at the end. So you have to get rid of minus 3 by adding it. Add the same thing to the left side. So now you have y plus 3 equals x squared plus 4x. And then we're going to look for plus c. We're going to look for the c value. So c is still equal to b over 2 squared. B's value is 4, so 4 over 2 is 2, and 2 squared is 4. So your c value is 4. So plus 4, but if you add 4 to the right-hand side, you have to add 4 to the left side. So now you have y plus 3 plus 4 equals x squared plus 4x plus 4. Now you have a perfect trinomial on the right. Take the square root of x squared, it's x. Take the square root of 4, it's 2. This tells you it's plus in the middle, so x plus 2 squared equals y plus 3 plus 4 means plus 7. It's almost vertex form right here. All you need to do is get y by itself again. So take y plus 7 and subtract 7 from it. Do the same thing to the right side. Y equals x plus 2 squared minus 7. That is vertex form. Okay, the quadratic formula, x equals negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac over 2a. All you're doing with this one is plugging in values. You know that this is a, you know that this is b, and you know that this is c. So we're just going to plug them in. X equals negative, b's value is 5, plus or minus the square root of b squared is 5 squared minus 4 times a's value is 5 times c's value is 4. All of that is going to be over 2 times a's value is 5. So when we simplify all of that junk that's in there, we had negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 25 square, 5 squared is 25. Negative 5 times 4 times 5 is negative 20. And negative 20 times 4 is minus 80. So all of that's going to be over 2 times 5, which is 10. So the square root of 25 minus 80, we're going to go from there, is the square root of negative 55. So we have negative 5 plus or minus square root of negative 55 over 10. And the only other thing we can do with that is get that negative value out from underneath the radical symbol and say negative 5 plus or minus I times the square root of 55 over 10. That is your value of x, as ugly and as funky as that looks. Using the quadratic formula is the only way to get that one. 18 says 4x squared equals 16. Undo 4 times something by dividing by 4. Do it here as well. X squared equals 4. Get rid of x squared and something by taking the square root of it. X equals 2. Again, that's positive or negative. 19 says rationalize it. So get rid of the square root of 6 on the bottom. Whatever that is, multiply it by it over itself, just like that. So 3 times the square root of 6 over the square root of 36, which we know simplifies to 6. So 3 times the square root of 6 over 6. The number 3 goes into itself 1 time and into 6 2 times. So the square root of 6 over 2 is your simplified version. And finally, number 19, you have to FOIL it. F stands for the first 2 terms. 2 times negative 8 is negative 16. O stands for the outer 2 terms. 2 times the square root of 10 is positive 2 square root 10. I stands for the inner 2 terms. Negative square root of 10 times negative 8 is positive 8 square root of 10. And finally, L stands for last 2 terms. Negative square root of 10 times positive square root of 10 is negative square root of 100. All you have to do is clean this one up. Put your like terms together, just like algebra 1. 2 times the square root of 10 and 8 times the square root of 10 is 10 square root of 10. And you could simplify negative square root of 100 is negative 10. So negative 16 plus 10 square root of 10 minus 10. Again, put your like terms together, negative 16 and negative 10. And you have negative 26 plus 10 square root of 10 is your simplified version once it's FOILed.